So, Season 2 of Hilda came out recently, and I realized, hey, didn't I do a video explaining the mythical origins of the spirits and supernatural creatures from Season 1? Maybe I should do a quick video about Season 2. This video is probably going to be a lot shorter than the first Hilda's Bestiary, as I won't be going over any of the repeat characters from Season 1. So, if you want to find out more about Nissa, Vitra, or the Tide Mice, then please go check out that video. Our first entry in the Bestiary comes from episode 2, when Hilda and Woodman go out looking for Draken, which, as Woodman explains, are the spirits of lost sailors doomed to sail forever on a ghost ship, separated from their loved ones and fresh produce. While the term Draken is used in Scandinavian folklore to refer to the ghosts of dead sailors, it's typically used to denote a singular entity, rather than an entire ghost crew. With a monstrous appearance and a head wrapped in seaweed, or no head at all depending on which sources you read, the Draken was believed to appear alongside sailing vessels, steering a tattered old boat that had been broken in half. While the Draken was considered a sign of death for those that saw him, one legend from northern Norway recounts the tale of a young man named Ola who was able to defeat the Draken, driving him from the shores of his village for good. One Christmas, while walking along the shore, Ola came across a Draken, who, like him, apparently had nothing better to do on Christmas. Unafraid, Ola confronted the creature, but his plan soon backfired when the now enraged Draken started chasing him around the village. Running into the town graveyard, Ola decided that this was as good a place as any to ask for help, and called out, "All Christian souls that rest here, help me fight against this monster." The next morning, Ola and some of the villagers returned to the graveyard to find that all the coffins had been uncovered, and the only trace left of the Draken were a few stray clumps of seaweed. Man, those ghosts do not play around. So much for resting in peace. The Season 2 episode of Hilda clearly takes a lot of influence from Ola's legend, as they share many of the same story beats. Finding, then angering the Draken, being chased through town, asking assistance from the departed, it's all very similar, though Hilda's version has a much less violent ending. While on a hike to see the Screaming Stones, a pile of magic stones that, well, scream, David encounters a clan of Vikings locked in eternal combat. These eternal warriors are most likely a reference to the Battle of the Followers of Hayden, an ancient story about two armies locked in combat for 143 years. While a normal battle would probably start to wind down after a decade or so, every time a warrior is injured or killed, they are revived by magic so the battle can continue. While multiple versions of this story exist, the most comprehensive account comes from the Solatharta saga, written in the 14th century. This account of the tale states that the battle between the two kings began because of a necklace given to the goddess Freya by her friends, the dwarves. Jealous of the gift, Freya's husband, Odin, commands Loki, the god of mischief, to steal the necklace, telling Freya that he will return it only if she can force two kings to engage in an endless battle. Odin states that the battle will continue indefinitely, with both sides being revived by magic, unless the conflict is disrupted by a great Christian king. Odin never explains why he wants Freya to do this, though as this version of the story clearly has some heavy Christian leanings, it's possible the writer just wanted to make Odin look like a colossal jerk. While Odin and Freya don't appear in the text again, things are set in motion when King Hayden, under the influence of a magic potion, kidnaps the daughter of King Hogni. The two kings wage war for 143 years until their battle is interrupted by a retainer sent by Olaf Tryggvason, the King of Norway, who is best remembered for his avid promotion of Christianity. Just in case you weren't 100% sure that this story was intended to be blatant Christian propaganda. The battle between the Eternal Warriors and Hilda also began because of a necklace, or rather a magic medallion. Each night, the warriors battle for possession of the medallion, and each day they are revived by Sigurd, a mysterious being who shares his name with the famous hero Sigurd, or Siegfried, as he's known in Germany. While there are many stories about the exploits of Sigurd, some of which vary widely from one another, one element that they all have in common is Sigurd's unparalleled bravery and heroism, a trait which Hilda encapsulates in the Magic Medallion, aka the Medallion of Sigurd, which has the power to erase the fear of anyone who touches it. While we're on the topic of Sigurd, the Screaming Stones, which we later find out are actually just Sigurd's rock collection, look an awful lot like a Kieran mound, basically a human-made pile of stones that are found in cultures around the world. While the term Kieran is derived from a Scottish Gaelic word meaning heap of stones, it's believed that Kierans were created for a number of different reasons, including burial mounds, monuments, and even trail and navigational markers. This fact isn't super important, I just thought it was a really cool background detail. While investigating a series of shipwrecks, Hilda, Frida, and David discover that Cauldron Island, the home of the Lindworm, is actually a Kraken, a gigantic creature with a penchant for sinking ships. The term Kraken, which could derive from the Old Norse word kraki, first appears in print during the 13th century, where it is described as a rare creature so large that it is often mistaken for an island. There is a fish, which it is scarcely advisable to speak about, on account of its size, which to most men will seem incredible. I can say nothing definite as to its length, for on those occasions when men have seen it, it has appeared more like an island than a fish. While the creators of Hilda took this description one step further, making the Kraken into an actual island, the show is correct in its assertion that Kraken were often thought to be the cause of shipwrecks. According to the natural history of Norway, while the Kraken was large enough to sink any ship it came across, sailors that managed to avoid an encounter with a behemoth also had to worry about the whirlpools that formed every time it retreated back into the ocean. While most sources say nothing about the Kraken eating ships, as most seem to agree that the creature's preferred diet consisted of fish and other sea creatures, fishermen and sailors still considered the Kraken a tangible threat, and would often be wary of waters with too many fish, as it was believed that the Kraken could draw fish toward it using the smell of its breath, or according to some sources, its excrement. Gross. Woodman's claim that the Kraken sleeps for 175 years doesn't seem to have any basis in mythology, though it's possible that he derived this piece of information from Sir Alfred Lord Tennyson's poem The Kraken. There hath he lain for ages, and will lie battening upon huge sea worms in his sleep, until the latter fire shall heat the deep, then once by man and angels to be seen. In roaring he shall rise, and on the surface die. This quote from Tennyson's poem explains that the Kraken will sleep below the waves until Judgment Day, when it will rise to the surface as the seas boil and the world ends. While I don't know for sure if Woodman is a fan of Tennyson, he does have a sizable book collection and seems to be generally well read. Though this would also mean that Woodman has determined that the apocalypse is just 175 years away, which, given the state of 2020, feels like a fairly generous estimate. the world of Hilda may not celebrate Christmas, it does have the Yule Lads, a band of 13 Icelandic brothers that love to cause chaos during the holidays. Often described as the children of the ogress Grilla and her husband Lebaladi, references to the Yule Lads first start to appear in the 17th century, where they are described as a group of evil ogre brothers, stories about whom were used by Icelandic parents to threaten their children into behaving. This was apparently so effective that in 1746, authorities in Iceland issued a law that prohibited parents from using stories of the Yule Lads or their mother Grilla to scare their children. I'm honestly not even joking. The Yule Lads were persistent, however, and refused to be erased entirely, cropping up from time to time in songs and stories, until Johannes Kotlum wrote a poem that repopularized the mischievous brothers and their association with the Christmas season. According to Kotlum, the Yule Lads, being 13 in number and surprisingly self-aware of just how insufferable they were, decided to stretch out their mischief over a period of 13 days, starting on the 12th of December with Sheepcoat Claude, who spends the day stealing ewe's milk. Next is Gullygawk, who likes to steal foam from buckets of cow's milk. The pair are then joined the next evening by Stubby, a short round fellow who likes to steal food from frying pans. After him comes Spoonlicker, whose crime should be self-explanatory. He's followed on the 16th by Potscraper, who spends the night licking used pots. Bowl-licker comes down to steal bowls from under people's beds, which were once used to store midnight snacks. Up next is Door-slammer, who likes to, well, slam doors, a habit which serves to keep people up at night. Skier Gobbler is a big fan of the Icelandic yogurt Skier, and has been known to loot people of their entire supply in one night. Sausage Swiper. I honestly don't know what I can say here that doesn't sound like an innuendo, so let's move on to Window Peeper, who likes to look in people's windows for stuff to steal. Door Sniffer uses his large nose to sniff out and steal Christmas baking. Meat Hook comes down on the 23rd to steal any meat that's been left unattended. Probably a good day to lock your fridge. Though, honestly, his name sounds less like a Christmas elf and more like a discount slasher villain. The last Yule Lad is Candlebagger, who comes down from the mountain on the 24th of December to steal candles. An item that was once very sought after, though some sources state they actually eats the candles, which were once made of animal fat. This could be the reason why Candlebagger claims Hilda's candle has gone bad, as rather than animal fat, modern candles are made of paraffin wax, or beeswax, which I assume is much less tasty. While Kotlum's poem doesn't mention anything about leaving gifts, modern tradition states that the Yule Lads come down from the mountain one by one to leave presents in the shoes of good children. To this end, children leave shoes in front of their window in the hopes that they will receive a present. Though the best that naughty children can hope for is a rotten potato, which still beats getting eaten by Grilla. Though the Yule Lads have definitely eclipsed their mother in popularity, Grilla is actually much older than her sons, as writings about her date all the way back to the 13th century. In the Sturlunga Saga, a collection of Icelandic writings from the 12th and 13th century, Grilla is described as an ogress who liked to devour children but had no power over good people. While Grilla hasn't really changed much since the 13th century, depictions of her vary quite a bit, with some of the oldest stories describing her as a huge creature with multiple heads, a beard, fangs, an eye in the back of her head, cloven hooves, and a tail. Some sources even insist that she has 15 tails, which she uses to carry bags full of naughty children. While Hilda's Grilla lacks the multiple heads and cloven hooves of earlier depictions, it's clear that the showrunners took inspiration from Icelandic folklore when designing her character. This gorilla is also large and intimidating, with a hairy body in lieu of a beard, and multiple horns on her back, which could be used to help carry bags of naughty children. In episode 9, Hilda and her mother return to the forest to track down Twig and discover a strange phenomenon in the sky that leads them to a herd of deer fox. The deer fox and their connection to the Northern Lights, or the Hildaverse equivalent of the Northern Lights, probably derives from the Finnish legend of the Fire Fox, a magical fox that is believed to run across the sky so quickly that his tail generated sparks, which people interpreted as the Northern Lights. While modern science has obviously disproven the existence of the fire fox, its legacy lives on in the Finnish word for the Northern Lights, revontulet, which translates as fires of the fox. Well, isn't that just awesome? In the last episode of Season 2, Hilda and her mother find themselves trapped in the Stone Forest, an underground labyrinth that serves as home base for the trolls. While I wasn't able to find any references to the Stone Forest in Norse mythology, there is a breed of trolls called the Guildfolk who were believed to live underground, though not much is recorded about what their underground kingdom actually looks like. Season 2 also reveals quite a bit about the nature of trolls, including their ability to use magic, a shared hatred of bells, and a fondness for kidnapping human children, all of which can be traced back to Scandinavian folklore. The trolls' deep hatred of bells is said to stem from a shared memory regarding the god of thunder, Thor, and his love of hitting them with his hammer. Because of this, trolls and their bell-induced PTSD is a common theme in many folktales, where bells are used to drive them away from towns and villages. Another common theme in many folktales is the trolls' use of magic. While trolls were often depicted as oafish and stupid, their ability to use magic made them dangerous, and many people feared getting on a troll's bad side. One common theme regarding troll magic has to do with the creation of changelings, troll children that have been magically transformed to appear human, and then swapped with a human child. While it may not make a lot of sense for a mother to intentionally switch her child at birth, changelings were often explained as a way for trolls to take revenge on human families, or an easy way to acquire a human servant. Lucky for Hilda, these stories often have a happy ending, as the kidnapped child is often returned home safe to their family. Though that's a story for Season 3. This season of Hilda does an amazing job combining elements from Scandinavian mythology with modern storytelling. While the story and characters are entertaining enough on their own, the ties to Norse mythology and folklore add another layer to the series that's honestly fascinating to talk about. Well, I'm Silver Jade, and as always, I must ask you to please remember to support your local library, and I'll see you next time.